So, welcome to the exclusive celebration of Cactus Day. This is something that I myself have started with the APS because I believe that cactus doesn't get enough attention in the psychedelic world. And so May the 5th marks the day that Aldous Huxley took the mescaline given to him by Humphrey Osmond, which he later transcribed as his book, The Doors of Perception. Incidentally, it was the letters between these two that inspired the term psychedelic, which, as you can see, lives on today. So to celebrate this very much underrated and undiscussed psychedelic, we gather every year to learn more about these incredible plants. So our first speaker for the day is Mark Camo, who's the owner-operator of Urban Tribe's Needle Park Cactus Nursery, which is one of the earliest entheogenic cactus gardens established in Australia. The story of Urban Tribes and how this fascinating and diverse collection came to be is grounded in Mark's travels through Peru and South America during the 90s. Whilst there, he not only collected specimens, but participated in traditional Huachuma and Peyote ceremonies, and we'll talk about the ritual practices he encountered whilst there. Second, we'll have ethnobotanist Liam Engel, who works with Edith Cowan University and Entheogenis Australis. Liam's the editor of the book San Pedro Hybrids and Trichocereus Culture, author of the reference guide for Lophophora conservation, creator of the Lophophora Research Repository, and a founding moderator of Trichocereus Auctions Australia. Liam will talk about growing these completely legal plants during a workshop focused on grafting and cacti seed germination using various methods. When he gets here, I'll do another quick intro about how that's going to work as well. So after the speakers, we will be screening a Wade Davis film. Now, Wade Davis was a very famous ethnobotanist. The film's called Peyote to LSD, a Psychedelic Odyssey. It's filmed in 5 different countries and based on the groundbreaking discoveries of the revolutionary ethnobotanist Richard Evans Schultes. It's a full-length cinematic journey from native ceremonies to laboratories in Switzerland, and the film explores the evolution of psychedelic substances from sacred plants to modern psychotropics, and it is really, really good. Looks a little bit dated in the cinematics, but the information in it is absolutely fascinating, and a lot of it is not documented anywhere else. So yeah, we need to leave the building as soon as the film's commenced, as there might be another booking after us too. And as I said, there'll be a unique opportunity after that to swap some cactus, give this away, or whatever. You choose to do, just sit around, chat, ask the speakers some questions if they've got time, and just generally find the others, which is a primary aim of the APS. And just to add, this cactus is entirely legal to grow, and the APS is by no means encouraging anyone to break the law by, say, chopping a length, stripping out the green flesh and consuming it. Thank you. So I'll hand you over to Mark Camo.
Hi everyone. Hi, everyone hear me? Yeah. I'm probably the worst public speaker in the world, so sorry about that. I did it for the cactus. I just want to say I had a brain aneurysm about maybe 5 years ago. So I actually wasn't expected to live. The hospital sent me home 3 times. It was my communication artery that actually burst. So they forgot to give me an MRI as someone got shot that day, and anyhow went home, kept vomiting. Long story short, went back, they sent me home again, went to a doctor, he gave me an MRI, and they had to go in and put coils into, it's basically like a car tube, and the tyres popped, so a whole heap of blood come out and caused epilepsy. And so anyway, I'll just throw that in. So I get a bit lost where I'm at, and you have to forgive me for that. But basically started my collection back for the early 90s. I picked up a book at school called Plants That Can Kill You, and was really interested, as an 8-year-old, hey, plants can kill you. Then I kept reading and started to try and collect them all. thinking I could maybe one day make something as a young kid, I found out I couldn't really find much in Australia because it was like, that was back in 89, 1990. So I started my journey looking around. I found one peyote in Sydney, which I bought. And then my mate was going to America. So I went with him and we ended up in USA to Peru. And then from Peru, we went to, I can't pronounce it, there was Araquaya, and then all the way from Ecuador to Bolivia. That was our whole trip. Spent quite a bit of time with this one particular group, and they taught me lots of stuff, what they look for in what they would use for a ceremony, like what specific colours. The group I were with, they looked for that translucent blue. You can see it on all cactus. I tend to think all psychedelics have that. There's like a blue tinge, like you can see it. Salvia leaves have it. That's one thing they'd look for. They also had two types. They'd have their dry cactus, which they would use for their big ceremonies, and then for short ceremonies that were like mainly just a celebration, that was fresh. They wouldn't let it dry out. So while I was over there, the head shaman, he gave me a lot of seeds, which I imported. Got them back to Australia and started growing. So that would have been about 95. So by the time they got into the ground, would have been about 1998. And that's that's the capi vine, the Banasteris capi, that was imported as well.
So I think, what year was that, Mark?
That was 94, I brought that back.
I believe firmly that is the oldest ayahuasca vine in Australia. As it precedes the vine brought over by Terence McKenna and gifted to Jeffries and Dumping, which is the general consensus legend that was the first.
I don't know, but 94 I brought it back. And tiny, it was wrapped up, I believe, in a toothbrush packet with spungan moss. So my friend told me. But it's been, I acclimatised it slowly from inside to outside because I didn't like the Australian sun. It kept wilting on me. It took me a while to, acclimatise it to Sydney conditions. So after it grew the pot out, I planted it into the ground.
So you can see the garden fence in the corner.
It's absolutely huge. It's ripped down 2 wattle trees, so it's over there they climb over trees, and when it rains they get heavy and it snaps them to the floor. And wherever they root on the floor, wherever the vine is on the floor, there will be a root. So the way it was imported was cut at the base where the roots were hanging out, and I believe put in that another toothbrush box. So, and when we brought that one back, only one of them survived. So that was the only one that came from that. Yeah, so it's quite big, but the stump's like bigger than, it's huge. It's like that. It's like your waist. It's absolutely huge. Yeah. So it's actually just a couple pictures of it. So all these were seed-grown Burgesses that I brought back. The seeds came back from Peru. They were the ones that the head of the shaman of the group I was with, he thought was the strongest, most robust of the Bridgesi. Yeah. I tried to, I didn't know what I was doing way back at the start, so I thought if I planted everything separately, they wouldn't pollinate. I didn't realise like things could get cross-pollinated. I was pretty new to everything. So now when they flower, like I'll put a stocking over it, you know, and collect pollen earlier from, shake it into a bit of paper, put it in the freezer, and then when I need it, I've got it, so I can get a brush and then put it on the flower as soon as it opens, and then cover it with a stocking and mark it, and then I know that that's not crossed with anything else, it's that particular strain. So all my stuff I didn't really collect from most people around Australia, like I just brought all my own seeds over. So I don't have a lot of all these names, you know, like there's heaps of names of Pedros. So Liam was nice enough to come and help me number all my cactus a couple months back. So now we've numbered all the Urban Tribe's seed grown only plants from 1 to, I believe it was, yeah, about 220. So basically 100 Bridgesis and 100 Pedros, something like that. So from now on I'll be selling them as like UT 1 to 100, say, and UT 1 to 100 with Bridgesis or San Pedros. So they all look different, they're all unique. As everyone knows, to most people cactus look the same, but we all know they don't. They're like people, all look the same, but we don't. So yeah, so I have a belief, you know, like cactus will find, or a plant will find its owner. You can want a plant, you know, and you really want it, and you think, how am I going to find that plant? And somehow you'll just find it, or it'll come to you if you deserve it. Yeah, so basically that's how I got my collection. And when I first seeded and I had a couple pieces, it was a divide and conquer game, so I chopped them up and made more. So someone brought back 3 pieces, and one of them rotted, so I cut that and then made another. Turned out, you know, like I just kept cutting them and made as many as I could. So there was a few pieces that were original clones as such, and then the rest of the garden is seed grown. Yeah, so that's pretty much how Urban Tribe started, and yeah. Oh yeah, I had a look on the Wayback Machine. 2002 was the first time the website was published. So at the start I couldn't give the stuff away, like people used to think it was Sirius Peruvianus, you know, the one you see in people's front garden. Yeah, I get 10 emails a week asking me, is this Peruvianus, sorry, is this San Pedro? And it's always some kid wanting to knock a bit off, I think. So yeah, so so this is going to sound a bit strange, but when I was 8, I was arguing with one of my mates in a paddock about why Indians and cowboys were fighting, and I was on the Indian side and he was the cowboy side, and they were about to pull down this park we were in, and it had a very old tree, like you could walk on the stumps, it was that old, you know, and I was crying that they were going to pull down our paddock, like, because I was upset for the trees. And he was sort of laughing at me, saying like, "You're the Indians and I'm the cowboy," like, you know. And as I said to him, like, I don't think it's right, there was a thunderclap and the log we were sitting on just rolled off. And I remember having this really intense feeling, like, you know, like you'll be a a protector of some plant or something one day. At the time I didn't really know, and I'm not saying that's what it was, but it was a very unique experience for me, and I have a feeling like my main interest is peyotes, like collecting. Like there's almost more in captivity than in the open. So
you go look from seed, or are you grafting them?
I mainly go from seed. I do graft a little bit just for something to do. I've got heaps of them, but seed grown I prefer. Yeah, they are strong. Yeah, they're more. If they're not seed grown, they won't be active. So you'll have to re-root them, and maybe take 3 to 4 years before the alkaloids build up. And even then, you've got to make sure your pH is right. If your pH isn't high, like maybe 8 or 9, your mescaline levels won't be very good. So if you're not checking your pH, that's with all cactus, even these guys. If you don't have a high pH, it's yeah.
And so that high pH, should that be related to its natural environment?
Yeah, the limestone, the volcanic ash.
Even the peyote though, which
yeah,
is in a sort of desert area, still volcanic sediment.
Because I guess it's so old there, it's spread, the wind carries it, and when you put your hand in there, it's not soil, it's not a dark soil, it's like sand. You kind of think to yourself, how does anything grow in this? Like
black sand?
No, it's not like that at all. It's more like, the sand you see around around the beaches, like that. It's like a browny beach sand. It's like that crossed with propagation sand. Not all parts, but yeah. So that's actually some of my collection. I was trying to explain how to tell X grafts from not grafts. So you can,
Supposed to be 30 years old?
Oh yeah, 30 or more, maybe for 40, 50. That's from spider mite, that yellowing. And if you don't get onto it really quickly, they'll decimate your peyote in a week or two. So neem oil, because you don't want to use something systematic. It's unhealthy. It's But I actually, sounds nerdy, but I get a magnifying glass and I inspect them once a week, just to catch them. Because if you don't catch them, it just happens in a week. You'll have a real ugly looking peyote, and it takes probably 2 years to recover or more, depending on your conditions. So you can see it grows out, but yeah.
So what do the seeds? So there's the grafting, and then what do the seeds actually look like?
They're tiny little black, very small, like a speck of sand. Smaller probably, exactly. Yeah. So they're hermaphrodites. They're self-pollinating, so they don't need to be pollinated. So as soon as you see a flower, that pink thing will pop up afterwards, and that's full of seed. And I recommend to get the seeds out while the pod's wet, otherwise it's a nightmare. If you let the pod dry with the seed in it, it's really hard to get out. So get them out while the seed's wet, or a bowl of water. Yeah.
But Mark's got this vacuum cleaner. It's like a little handled one that, as they flower and the seeds scatter, he vacuums them up in a little handle.
Because what happens in nature, well, what the shaman taught me, you know how the peyote has the fluff, the hair? He says when the pink bit falls apart, the seeds get stuck on the white tufts, and then when it gets windy, it will blow them off to somewhere close, and that's where they'll pollinate. So yeah, so sometimes I don't collect them all because I've just got so many, so I miss them. And if you don't pull the pod off, you need to get a pair of tweezers and pick them all out, and you can never get them out. So I found a little vacuum cleaner, on eBay, and it just sucks them all up. It's awesome. Yeah.
What? So you suck it into the chamber cleaner, or do you have like a nylon?
No, it just I only ever used it for peyote, and it just keep it in there. Then pull the filter out and then put it on some paper. And I've probably saved over 200 seeds I would have lost. Yeah.
You'll have to make a video of that and post it online, because it sounds like a...
Actually, I did.
Yeah.
I did it.
My brother had one for ants because he buried ants, and he was using them to pick ants up. It gave me the idea to pick up peyote seeds. Yeah, but it's just some of the collection.
So most of the origins of these peyotes from the Wixarika Huichol grounds, the traditional grounds of northern Mexico.
Northern, yeah. I've got an actual book on me because what happened when I joined the Cactus and Succulent Society, I think they're shut down now. There was an old guy who was 78 and he had cancer, and he'd been growing these peyote, which he imported when he was about 30, and his wife didn't know what to do with them. So I was the youngest person in the club, so I got a chance to buy his whole collection. So half of them came from him. The other half I imported, which I don't know if anyone's heard of Hamilton's at Landilo. She's got a quarantine nursery, so you can pay her to put cactus in there, and Aqueous will come and check it every week or something, and after about 3 months or 6 months they give you the go-ahead to take it home. So the other half of my collection, some of the bigger ones up the top, they were field collected myself. Yeah.
How much was conservation an issue when you were there, given that was several decades?
It was terrible. The group I was with I was bordering Texas. The peyotes grow in Texas as well. And the group I was with, they went to because it's illegal to have a peyote in America. So they wanted to go to where they were redeveloping houses. And they went to the government and they asked if we could pull the peyotes out of the ground and save them. And they said no. So they just bulldozed them and built houses. So, and it's still happening to this day. Yeah. So, yeah. And there was one group that had a bit of luck. They were an Indian cultivation. They were given permission, but they were still only given numbers they were allowed to collect. So I believe it was like 50 or something. It was ridiculous. So, and then everyone knows that unfortunately back in the 60s the hippies ripped a lot out of the ground and just sort of ate them and threw the root away where they should have cut them, and they would have grown back. So sort of that's 50 years later. It's sort of yeah,
it's quite a political issue in the States at the moment with the decriminalisation movements that are happening in Oakland and Portland. Is like they're actually leaving peyote off that and saying, no, look, let's keep this restricted. Yeah. So we have an influx of psychonauts wanting peyote. When San Pedro's it's way better.
When anyone gets into it, I reckon they first get into it because they go, oh yeah, wow, it's got drugs. And once you get your hands on it and you see it, you can't bring yourself to kill it or chop it up, and you end up like realizing they're all different, and you end up having 10 of them, and yeah, it becomes a relationship, and it's not about the drugs, like it's if you. Yeah, that's what I always say. I had a police officer come once to the Cactus and Society Club, and he said to us, can you please give us photos of San Pedro and peyote so we can identify them when we do raids? And the head of the club said, well, what do you mean? And he said, every time we do a raid on a bikie meth lab, we find 1 or 2 cactus, and the head of the club said, like, I don't think they're making mescaline sulfate. I think they just like the idea of the significance of it. So he comes back a week later, and turned out they'd spoken about it and they gave up on the idea. But yeah, this was like back in 96 or something. So yeah, that was pretty. I thought it was ridiculous, but yeah, they wanted to give the police officers an A4 sheet of what's a San Pedro, what's a peyote, what's a Brigesi. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's one of the things as to why cactus is so sort of under focused in the psychedelic renaissance, is because LSD very much took over, because it was you could make so much more, so much less, it was easily transportable.
Has anyone ever offered you mescaline sulfate in Australia? No. No. Where you can go to America, you'll get offered it. So maybe that was their train of thought, I'm not sure, but yeah, the whole thing was stupid. But yeah, that was the last we heard of that. So yeah. Yeah, at the moment I've got he's from North Sydney. He's counsellor for a rehab centre. I won't mention the name, but he's got a grant from the government to do look into cubiensis for depression. So I've been helping them a little bit with some specimens, and because they didn't really understand how to get their hands on a spore print and where to go from there.
They've seen the research stage.
Yeah, so that's interesting, and they've got 10 patients they're working with. So I'll know the outcome in a few months, what will happen with that. So basically they told the people to get right down off your antidepressants as low as you can, and then they started microdosing them with cubiensis, just 0.2 or to 0.5 a day, depending on their weight. So I've heard some feedback, and
How was it?
well, he said 8 of them out of the 10 found it, they've almost got off their tablets, but 2 of them it didn't help at all. So
They probably need follow-up sessions.
yeah, and there's a lot to it. So yeah, and maybe those people kept doing stuff at home, or I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of factors as to what. Yeah.
So bringing that back to cactus, what do you see the sort of potential for cactus and the therapeutic?
Well, that was his next question, because Mark Dexter, who is the neurosurgeon who fixed my head, he agreed that the mescaline I was taking stopped me from dying as much, because it's, yeah, and so he's told that place as well. So their next research is into mescaline, or cactus powder I should say, not mescaline as such, yeah. Because they saw what it did to my brain, and right in the front of my brain here there's like a marshmallow. It's from where all the blood caused the bleeding out from the aneurysm. And they told me, like I wouldn't walk and talk again, and someone would have to wipe my bum and all this stuff.
They told me that Mark was out.
Yeah, I don't really remember, but and I was I should say triple dosing on Capi, cactus, and marijuana, and I told them all this, and they think that that's why. It had some relation as to why I was one of the quickest to heal from it. And what was the percent, Joe, they gave me? It was
95%. Like they told me not to expect Mark to survive, because it was so late into, he'd already been bleeding on the brain for 3 days before they actually, 4 days by the time they did the surgery. So they didn't think it would be good. They expected Mark to have to learn to speak, eat, walk. He wouldn't recognise us.
So yeah, but I'm pretty sure the plants saved me on that one. So yeah.
Okay.
Mark, how much cactus were you consuming on the period leading to your aneurysm?
So I was taking up to 10 grams dry a day. It was really hard to keep anything down because anything I'd try to swallow would just come straight back up. So I would put like 10 grams in and get as much down as I could. And yeah. They actually taught me over there why you vomit, well, the shaman believed, is you're getting rid of your bad, whatever's bad for you, like whatever's in your mind that's bad, or maybe you've got some problems or whatever. He said when you don't vomit, it's when you're pure as such. You've become you. Yeah. So
I guess that's the interesting thing about those cultures is that, the mind, the body, the spirit is all seen as one interconnected organism. So sickness is seen in this sort of magical, religious, spiritual sense. But they, you read many stories, particularly in Mike Jay's book, Mescaline, a couple of years ago, about how they would use peyote to treat cholera. Yeah. And there's documented cases of settlers being treated with peyote during the cholera outbreak and surviving.
Yeah, they use it for stomach ulcers over there, San Pedro. Just microdosing. They cut a little V, just a tiny V out one section, and just put it in a tea and for stomach ulcers. And when you get reflux, that's their version of stopping reflux. So yeah, it's funny. I still talk to the people over there, and she went over to see her parents, and she told them she was pregnant, and they said, "Oh, yeah, no alcohol for you." And they went straight up to the San Pedro and chopped a little V off, and made her a San Pedro tea, which I thought was funny. So yeah.
I remember you telling me some interesting stories about the initiation rites of young people.
Yeah, so exactly. So when they hit 5, they have their first, this is just a group, I'm not saying it's all groups, but the group I was staying with, they believed when you hit 5 years old, you take your first peyote, and it's not a great big one, it's probably like a 10-cent piece, 5-cent piece to 10-cent piece. And you all know peyote have a different face. Like you can look at all of them, and like humans, they all have the same, look the same, but they're different. So anyhow, the first trip they ever have, that peyote, when they have a ceremony for the rest of their life, they draw that picture on their cheek. Yeah, so you can see now they're all different. That would be about the size they would give their 5-year-olds. So.
We're coming close to time now. If there's any one person with a burning question, we'll take one more.
How long are the seeds viable once they're collected?
A long time. Up to 10 years I've had some pop up. They just take longer to sprout. But yeah, I found some I had in the cupboard for 10 years, and I put them in a couple of weeks ago, and they came up 2 days ago. So yeah. And as long as they don't go mouldy, as long as they're well preserved. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank
Cool.
you so much, Mark.
No worries.